Okay. Welcome everyone for October's OWASP Foundation board meeting. We'll just start with the attendance. So on the call is myself, Sharif Mansour. I'll be chairing the call. We have Owen Pendlebury, Gary Robinson, Grant Ongers, uh, Martin Knobloch. Um, we have absent at the moment is Vandana, and we've reached out to Richard, but at the moment is not on the call. So the first point is to approve the previous board minutes. So can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is that Martin?
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. Very
Free
prompt. Thank
sharing.
you. I'll share my
The
screen.
agenda. Yeah.
Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so from the order of people I see, vote to approve September's meeting minutes. So, Martin,
Yes.
Owen,
Yes. Sorry, I was on mute.
okay. Grant,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
and yes for myself as well. Okay, so on the next item is reports, so organizational KPIs and financial summary. Andrew, would you like to take that?
Yes, absolutely. We've had a healthy increase in membership this month. That is annually over 24% growth, which is fantastic. What we need to do though is continue this. We're going to be doing membership drives throughout the next few quarters, and you'll see that. I really appreciate if the board could help us promote those membership drives as they come through. This one was essentially associated with the option of becoming a member during the AppSec virtual. And so we're going to continue to do that. So it'll be a ticket class that you can actually pay $50 more and get the membership rate. So essentially, instead of paying $295, you're paying $245 and obtain membership. So that actually worked out really well. We're going to continue to do that. So the full fee is being paid, and that's a basis that we'd like to continue. We've also had a healthy return of visitors to our website. Sharif, I have not forgotten to do a better job of KPIs for the web. What we're going to be doing is I've actually been looking through SEO metrics, and visitors themselves aren't that impressive. What we do need to do is actually work on how often things folks stay. So what's the bounce rate? What are the number of hit terms, and where are we getting our traffic from? We should be trying to grow our organic growth here. We have done a reasonable job, but that's also probably because people have returned from leave, and also to a certain degree, the AppSec virtual has driven some traffic towards us. However, we will improve the website KPIs. We've had a slight decrease in SLAs. This is due to a methodology change. I've actually put in a report that provides me consistent values. I've now gone back and revised all the previous months, and the little graph there actually shows you how we're doing on our SLAs. I'll continue to work with the staff to get this back to where it should be, because it's very quiet at the moment. Let's just say that I would like to see both of those above 95%. I would certainly suggest, while it's quiet, 100% is eminently achievable. And I think it just simply comes back to folks closing tickets when we don't hear from people on time. A lot of the time we literally leave tickets open because we haven't heard back from the respondent. We should absolutely probably be closing tickets once we actually achieve. The September books are not closed. Tom is going to talk to you about the audit result. So once we actually do have the September books closed at the end of next week, I will provide that to the board. But fundamentally, it'll be reported in next month's minutes. Oh, sorry, agenda.
I have
Tom.
one question.
Yes. Go ahead.
One question. We did in the past also that we raised membership increase with additional tickets to conferences, but we never had metrics on how many people actually do renew. Is something you can take in action or in account?
I will. So renew versus join, is that what you're after?
Yeah, so yeah, and also more demographics we missed for the conference generally, like what type, where they come from, what we collect about this.
I think also like whoever how many renew the following year, having not gone to a conference and stuff like that would be useful.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to be in a much better position once everything is in Copper. At the moment, we don't have a lot of this information because of where the data is stored in MailChimp. Once it's in Copper, which is a proper CRM, we'll be able to get you that demographic data. At the moment, I think it'll be a bit hard.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
We also currently don't collect the home chapter. We have to sort of assume from the home address where they might live. So we will be continuing to collect that information. Okay, so there's 208 new members from this conference. So Emily's just provided that information. So thank you, Emily. Tom.
Thank you, Andrew. Hello, everybody. So Andrew's right. Typically, we have the books for the prior month closed by the end of the third week, which we're in. So I apologize that we don't have them, but we will, as Andrew noted. But I do want to talk to everybody today about our audit. I don't know how much of you know that in our bylaws, it requires OWASP to have an outside CPA firm audit our books every 3 years. So for the 2013 audit, that's when we all started working with you. We started in September. It had to get done in October, and we got through it. But we had a number of write-ups and issues, but it was clean. It was unqualified. And let me explain what that means. So if you're not accounting for GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles, or there's material weaknesses in your internal controls, auditors will give you a qualified opinion, meaning that their opinion is based on a specific qualification. So there's only two options. Well, there's three. They won't give an opinion. They'll give you a qualified opinion, or they give you unqualified. Unqualified is the best. It means they found no issues. So for 13, we got unqualified, but had a lot of things we had to work on. Push forward 3 years for 2016, it was better, but we had adjusting journal entries that we had to fix and some other issues. Push forward to 2019, and Sharif, I want to thank you because you kept reminding us of this all last year that we were going to go through an audit. We fixed the issues. We got another unqualified opinion, which was great. We also had no adjusting journal entries, which means they found nothing to adjust. The management report was clean. The board report, the only thing that they noticed, and this is just, auditors have to look at something. They noted that, or they're noting to all of their clients to keep what's gone on with the pandemic that's happened in 2020 for our budgeting for 2021, which we will do. And with all of the cyber fraud that's out there, they put a recommendation to review their clients' computer systems. Other than those two things, that was it in the audit. So we should be very proud of where we were and where we are now as to what we've accomplished. Between the staff and us handling the accounting, the executive directors. It's one of the cleanest audits I've seen in a long time. So
excellent work, and thank you,
Thank you.
Tom, for all the hard work in helping us through this as well.
no worries. And when we got through it in time, we should have the 990, which is the tax return to get out. It's due on November 15th. So we're still way ahead of the game. And what we'll do for next year, because it's not an audit year, is that we will try and close the books March or April to finish. So we look at subsequent events and then get them to the CPA to produce the 990 so that we're not doing it, closer to when it's due. But with an audit, you have to finish the audit first before they'll do the 990. So just to give everybody an update.
Thank you.
So just one question, Tom. We had the recognition of memberships as being an issue during the middle of the audit. We got to a place where we could consider it an unrestricted donation. Is that correct as the treatment?
That's how they're treating it, because it's a very small amount, and unfortunately there's not a lot of tangible benefits that come with it. So they allowed them to be recognized as unrestricted donations.
No worries. I'll review the audit report for the security aspect, but we do use Chrome OS, and therefore I think it's probably more about the process for payables. We don't want people to socially engineer, please pay such and such a person. So I'll look into that and get back
Andrew,
to you.
I don't know whether we have any policies around it, but it might be something good from a password perspective. So all our systems they are available externally, hence the reason why everybody's working from home and all that kind of stuff. So just from that perspective, just to align to something like NIST or something like that from a password complexity perspective, for all staff, for all OWASP accounts, I guess, would be useful.
So that's a good point. Owen, sorry. A lot of our clients are starting to use LastPass. I'm wondering if that's something that we might want to think about.
We already do.
We do. Yeah.
Yeah, and it makes it easier to use complex passwords because you can just copy and paste from there without actually ever seeing the password. But I guess over the years being involved with OWASP, I've seen some very basic passwords being used. So just we don't want to be subject to what we're trying to achieve with our community. I guess we want to be the leaders in that.
I will.
As long as we actually do adopt the new NIST 863 standard, not the one that's currently in use by the DSS.
I'm happy with whichever one, but Harold just said his password is OWASP123, so maybe we need to send the auditors to him.
Okay, I'll make sure everyone's got 2FA. We generally use integrated authentication. We do have LastPass, and I actually do have MFA turned on for everything, but I will go through and make sure that we actually do have good password hygiene.
Yeah, like even for the payment systems and Jira and all that kind of stuff would be useful to ensure that we're enforcing complexity.
Okay.
Especially from a staff perspective.
I will go and have a look. Okay. Thank you.
Cheers.
So yeah, we'll quickly go through the executive director summary and then the previous board votes, just with conscious of time.
Sure. Okay, so AppSec Virtual has been very successful. It has been profitable in its own right, and the sponsorship on top is just the cherry. So that's actually very, very pleasing, and I would recommend to the board. We're likely to ask for a special meeting to go over events sometime after our debrief in early November. I am currently now quite happy to recommend that we go with the hosted platform mechanism that we've just done. We will go out and ask for a different quotes and whatnot to make sure that we're getting good value. But fundamentally, that has seemed to work very well, and we've had good response from sponsors and quite an active number of both free, paid, and training. So this has worked well. So we'll keep on doing it. But look for a special meeting being called in the week, probably around the prep meeting. We'll get that organised as time comes closer. Board source, please make sure that you've logged in and started the training. There is free training available to you. If you're continuing on in the board, it'd be worthwhile making sure that you're going to do the same training as everybody else. There is a board review process. I would like to reserve that until January when we've got the new board, so that we can go through and use that to improve the subsequent board, because we've only got a limited amount of time left for this one. We only get one of those. We are concluding the legal review of our contracts. I hope to have all of that completed by the end of October. There is a lot of policies and things to review and close out. There are policies ready for review. They're in the agenda down below. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at them. The trademark program is in the discussion versus vote today. I would love to see a vote so we can get on with it. It's, I think, a sustainable new part of our business, and I'd love to see it get going. We are working on the budget. I will be working with Bandana, Tom and others and the committee heads to actually get a budget together. And lastly, the operating plan has started to actually have some of its very first things completed. So this is actually very pleasing. So the project management tool is actually helping, and we'll be able to track where we're at. And that's going to be it for me. If there's any other questions, I'm happy to take them offline as well.
Okay, so quickly go through the previous e-votes. So there was a vote to formally adopt Robert's Rules of Order, specifically the 12th edition. The vote passed 6-0. There's another vote to operationalize temporary infractions of Code of Conduct. That also was 6-0, one no vote. And then grant complimentary membership to active leaders. That has also passed unanimously, so 7-0. And now we move on to the old business. So there's one motion that we hadn't gotten to from the previous board meeting to approve the new community policy. Owen, as the sponsor, would you like to go through it? Owen has sponsored, I have seconded, so we'll open for discussion. Owen, can you start, and then we'll have a roundtable with the rest of the board?
Yeah, and I guess, Andrew, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's been an amendment to the original document which we put forward, and that's the change from section 5.01. Everybody can see there. I guess I did state or ask in my email just to clarify the 2/3 majority vote in this as well. I don't know whether you want to put it into the actual text before we vote on it.
So there is actually in the other two motions a description from RNOR on exactly how that works and how that applies to us. This would be the same. I would prefer it if we just stuck to 44.3 as being the definition. I'm happy for us to use that definition because then it becomes the same as everybody else.
Okay. Yeah, perfect. And I guess so. The background to this is that so originally Josh Oakle wrote Committee 2.0, and then I amended it a few years later, just to clean up some issues that we had with governance and so on. And now both myself and Andrew have gone through it, and mainly Andrew, in fairness. I was on a few calls with him, and he did the majority of the work, so credit to him. But I guess from this is so this revised version of Committee 2.0, which will be the committee policy and not Committee 2.0, is basically a cut down version of the policy, which is giving guidance, and then all the detail will be in a committee handbook, which will come at a later date. So this really gives guidance on how to set one up, what you need, and what's required in order to establish a committee under OWASP as a flagship. So the motion is resolved that to promote the creation of additional core committees to enumerate the powers devolved to committees with appropriate checks and balances to comply with legal, tax and other regulations and safeguards to protect the foundation and the board, that the following committee policy is approved. Existing committees will transition to the governance model of this committee policy, OWASP's bylaws should be amended to allow the devolution of certain board responsibilities and activities to committees as follows. So the change in section 5.01, I won't read that, but it's really changing it so that the board directors may, by resolution, adopt a majority of the directors in office, establish one or more board subcommittees, e.g. fundraising, finance, audit, or executive advisory boards or committees. These will be held to the core purpose and core values as outlined in section 1.02 and 1.03. Committees are formed and governed by the committee policy and are limited the charter's purpose, or to the charter's purpose and scope. As a committee charter might devolve powers currently held by the board or the foundation to the committee. Any such devolution to the committee will require a 2/3 majority vote, and as Andrew mentioned there, 44 to 3 vote. So if there's any discussion or anybody wants to ask any questions on this, hopefully everybody's had a chance to read the amended version, and if not, I guess, Sharif, we can go to a vote.
That's all
like Martin, yeah.
There's a minor detail. The discussion link links back to this page, actually.
Yeah.
That's the only thing.
Okay, that's a mistake. Let me get the link for you.
Yes.
I know it, and I found it. I just want to make sure it's in there.
Thank you, Martin. And Andrew, on a related note, on the trademark discussion later, further down the line, Mike, the link to the PowerPoint doesn't work either. So do try to correct that, and also send it in the chat in Zoom, just so that we have some time to look at that as well.
Yeah, I fixed it. Probably not to be about an hour, but I'm in bed.
Not a problem. Yeah, Gary, Grant, anyone else? Is there any other discussion on this item?
Grant looks like he wants to talk, but you're on mute.
I'm considering whether I want to bring it up yet. So the only question I have is around how does, if committee is dissolved, how does that power revert back to the board? The motion doesn't actually explicitly account for it, but I assume that is what happens.
I believe that at the end of the day, all powers are reserved unless they're explicitly granted to a committee. So that's why it should be done that way.
But if a committee no longer exists, if a committee is shuttered?
Let me look at the actual policy.
I don't think it's actually written in there what would happen.
Give me one tick while I get that.
It's open in a tab below this one.
Yeah, I've opened it here, yeah. Conditions.
So there's a formation, but there's
dissolving a committee.
Let me, if I can, it's relevant and practical for you. Let me just go to where it dissolves the committee.
Okay, so this one basically, I think the intent between you three, and sorry if I'm going up and down really quickly, it's more of a discussion of when is this going, when do you dissolve a committee, as opposed to what happens to the power of that committee once that's dissolved. I think by default, Andrew's comment is sound, but it's best that we put it in writing here.
Yeah, powers to return to the board upon dissolution.
And it's a good point that you brought up, Grant. So I'm glad that you did. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Grant.
So other than that point, the concept, what we're trying to achieve here is, I think, the right approach, right? We're trying to put the power back in the hands of the community and make individuals responsible for actually getting things done, rather than it falling on volunteers acting outside of the bounds of their actual volunteer work. So I think this is a very good approach.
Okay, so let me just paste what I put in. I think it's a very small and
We've watched you
important.
edit it live, Andrew.
Okay, just in case anyone hasn't got the document open. Okay, good.
Typos and all.
Sharif had it up.
Okay, cool.
Okay. If going once, going twice, I say we can go for a vote. So by order of board members I see in front of me, Martin,
Yes.
Grant,
Yes.
Owen,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
and that's a yes from myself as well. So the motion has passed 5 to board members absent. Okay, so that's the old business. So the new business will start with the motion to approve reviewed policies. So before we begin the motion, I do want to ask the board, having read those policies, to speed up the process, do you have any objections on one or a few policies, or are you happy to vote on a motion for all 6 of those?
I think Grant's input was pretty good earlier on, and as long as that's in, I'm happy. Sorry, Grant, I talked across you.
No, that's perfectly okay, Owen. Yes, so Andrew's added he's ensured that things are consistent across them. So yeah, I think we're ready to vote on them as a whole.
Need to sponsor in a second.
I can sponsor.
And I'll second.
Okay, thank you. So Owen sponsored, Grant second. We'll open for discussion, and then we can go for a vote. The only item that I have as a observation, more than anything else, is for the events. There was a line item says that travel expenses are not reimbursable to speakers and trainings. Is that what we currently do right now? Is that a change to what we have?
You know what, Sharif, that's a good catch. That's a mistake now, because the expense policy was amended based upon the policy review team to basically say that if it was budgeted, or whatever the budget is for the event, they are free to do whatever they want to do there. So that's actually both of those items probably should be removed. That's a mistake on my part. I didn't catch that.
Okay, good. So Andrew, for this policy, can you please just remove those 2 line items there?
Yes.
Yeah, it might be the last line as well.
Yeah, it's the line just before it, because it basically says unless.
Yeah.
So starting from, well, complete.
Yeah.
Well, technically, unless provided for an approved budget, which we've already said it would be. So
yes,
it's actually correct as is,
I
because
need-
nothing will be paid for unless it's approved in the budget, right?
Yeah, actually, sorry, it's correct.
So,
Okay.
so technically, it is accurate as is today.
Yeah.
Although
It just requires
a list of
the last.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, there you
the
go.
list should be infinite things that if we're going to list everything, nothing's covered for unless it's budgeted for.
So it's basically saying unless explicitly approved, but you can explicitly state that trainers' budget, travel budget will be included in the event.
Well, I suppose it depends on the level of detail we require for an event budget. Do we just get a number and they can spend it as they want, or do we request line item level budgeting?
Line item.
If you scroll up,
It's important for line item because we need to understand how the money's being spent.
Yeah,
It's also important for when we go through an audit, because they're going to want to see what it was actually spent on. So I agree. I think you need line item.
So,
Yeah.
so if we do require line items, then they will appear in the line items, right? Otherwise, it's not budgeted for.
So I've made a change. It says, while the complete terms are included in the agreement, it should be highlighted unless explicitly budgeted and approved. So essentially, it adds a couple of words to say that unless you put it into the budget. Okay, so it looks like you've actually changed it already.
No, that's the way it was there.
Yeah,
So
it
we've just refreshed, but it hasn't.
So if we want to, if we're going to change the policy so that it's less contentious, let's just change it to say that while the complete terms are included in the agreement, it should be highlighted that unless a budgeted for and approved at a line item level, no expenses will be covered by the foundation. So as long as they have a budget, as long as they've accounted for it, they can fly speakers in or trainers in from wherever.
Yeah, the spirit of the intent is to make sure that people understand that we're not saying that speakers or trainers should not, as a ground rule, be reimbursed for travel expenses. They should. It's more that it has to be listed. So Andrew, I like the recommended wording. Can we remove those two line items and add that?
And just would it be worth adding a file there of a typical conference budget?
if you scroll
so
down,
that-
if you scroll down, Sharif, keep going. There's the budget, and actually it shows travel as one of the expense items used in that kind of.
No, you skip past it. Go a bit up.
You passed it.
It's a code include block. So if you just scroll up slightly,
You'll see the
Oh, that one. Okay.
there we go.
Expenses travel second to the bottom.
Okay.
Just an FYI in this, because I'm the one who usually does the bills. Normally, we don't pay for any trainers' travel for any of the global events. We do pay for the keynotes, but normally I don't reimburse for any expenses, food, anything for speakers or trainers.
Right now, and the original policy draft was written such to implement that policy, Don. But the feedback from the community that was accepted by the policy review team was that if the budget for the conference does have travel for speakers, that's okay. It just needs to be in the budget that gets approved by the foundation.
Okay, so then, like someone said, if they can make it a separate line item, because then when I do paying the bills, it's really going to have
to be listed.
Number.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So Andrew, have you made the necessary changes?
I'm working on it. Give me one tick.
This is not as quick as updating some HTML. There's some markdown and then it needs to be pushed, merged.
Yeah. Aside from that, while Andrew's working on this, are there any other issues with the remainder of the policies to discuss? That was the only one I found basically that sprung to mind.
I want to have it's not about the policy by itself, but the context. So when somebody organizes a conference, how do we follow up on a policy? I think it's something like we said with membership, that we said leaders have to sign a kind of agreement to the policies. We want to have this also for somebody who organizes a conference, that they have to sign a policy agreement.
Yeah, that's currently in process. And we do have them when someone wants to organize an OWASP event, they do have to fill out a form that does say they'll apply, they'll follow our rules. As stated in this document, it'll reference this policy agreement. So they technically do have to kind of sign Martin, but there's not a separate agreement yet. We've talked about it.
Okay, thanks.
Get that changed on.
Okay. Bless you. while the pull request is being done, do we want to? The motion's still open. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. Do we include chapter meetings as events? I guess so. Yes.
They're a special type of local event, but yes.
Yeah, but they are not mentioned directly.
They're mentioned at the top.
But not mentioned that they are a separate type, because a lot of chapter meetings are actually taking place at companies. So do we need something special for that when a company is hosting a chapter event?
That would be
And some
that would be outside of the scope.
Yeah, so that should be then not classified as being outside, no?
Yeah, it's
Because
not
they speak.
So
and the
events
class
are
of events are
outside
outside.
this. Yeah, it's written there. So there are different types of
Okay.
events, and the chapter events are outside of the scope of this policy, which will be found in the chapter policy.
Okay, thanks.
Have a look at the change that I've just done. Like, I'll refresh the screen.
All right. Okay, it takes a while. What I could do also to speed it up is to go here and check out your pull request. So,
No, it wasn't a pull request. I edited directly into master because we're busy. I violated my own GitHub policies.
You know this is being recorded. Yeah.
Yeah, developers will never talk to never.
No.
Okay, so this is it. This is the change. So while complete terms are included in the agreement, it should be highlighted that unless provided in an approved budget with explicit line items, unapproved expenses or travel will not be paid. Okay, good. All right. Any further questions or discussion items on any of the 6 policies? Going once, going twice. Okay. I'll start the vote again in order for members that I see. So Martin.
Yes.
Grant.
Yes.
Gary.
Yes.
Owen.
Yes.
And myself is yes. Congrats, everyone. We've just passed 6 policies for the OWASP Foundation.
Thank you. I'll get them updated.
Thank you. All right. Next one, which I'm sponsoring, is the motion to comply with the U.S. government sanctions. So for, and Owen is sponsoring, seconding rather. So a little bit of context behind this. As a 501c3 foundation in the U.S., we need to comply obviously with the laws of the United States. There are some rules with regard to dealing with other nations, including ones that are on the sanctions list. So this motion is for us to resolve to ensure that we follow those rules. So I'll start with any discussions on that motion.
Man, I think it's not a discussion, it's a legal requirement for us. I think how unhappy non-Americans are about these rules. I don't want to know about Americans, but non-Americans, this is really weird. Rather than, we have to follow this up, but I would like to see alternatives. For example, the Red Cross also has people, or the Amnesty has people in Iran, and Amnesty is also in America. So I would like to see an alternative for this, not just say, okay, hey, sorry, you are in Iran and we cannot allow you by American laws, but I also would like to see an alternative. I think we are always, what are the alternatives for as global, and what does it mean for those countries? Because Iran is not the only country, and I think we also, Sharif, you spoke to a delegate, I think they were from Iran back then.
Yeah.
So I think this is very unfortunate and short-sighted, and also we have to keep in place because this list is changing, right? And do we know all the countries on the list?
Yeah.
So So to summarize, so A is one, how we do the operational side, how we keep track on it, and B, I would like to see an alternative option for. There must be a solution for that because I'm feeling really uncomfortable with this. But we have to follow it up.
So I'm completely with Martin on this one. I realize that we have very little choice right now, and the way that foundations like the Red Cross get around this is they skirt the policies. We're also not going to bring ourselves compliant with EU sanctions lists, despite the fact that we have a EU corporation, EU entity as well. Yeah, fundamentally, this is a problem, right, for us as a foundation, because we are open. We probably all believe that Iran has the right to resources that allow them to build safe software for their citizens to use, just as much as any other country on the planet. So this is a problem, but we need to go through this process with whatever the results are.
So to be clear, that the lawyers have recommended that we do this. They didn't recommend any other alternatives. I think, you know, it depends is the lawyer's way of saying, you know, you can do whatever you want, but we advise this. I think for fiduciary duty, we need to do this until we can actually resolve this in another way, whether that's through working with Iran through our EU entity if it's not banned there. But fundamentally, I believe that, you know, these other organizations that are actually operating in these sanctioned countries may have a legal framework or a legal entity in those sanctioned countries so they can operate separately. But I don't know. But in the meantime, they've asked us to deal with this because we are a US 503C and the vast majority of our funds come through the US entity. At this very moment, the EU entity has negligible activity and negligible funds, especially with no events happening directly in Europe. So there's possibly alternatives, but for the US entity, we do need to probably take their advice.
Yep. Are there any other countries you have problem with? Because you now identify one country, but possibly more.
Yes,
Yeah,
there's 5
there's
countries.
yeah, there's
Sorry?
I believe, yeah, 5 countries. I believe obviously one of them is North Korea. There's a few others as well. I don't know if Sudan is still on the list, but I thought Sudan was. Yeah.
I think we have no choice, but next step, I would like to see that we also work on a solution.
Yeah. On a personal note, both Martin and Brent, thank you. I'm proud to work with you on the board and what you've said. That means a lot for me as well. And I do hope that we find a way to be able to help other people, to be able to have chapters in their countries, especially in a difficult situation like this. But we also have a responsibility for the foundation, so we have to do it in a responsible manner as well for the rest of our communities. Thank you.
So just to add, as we're in discussion, so I'm just looking at an EU sanctions list, and there's a number of countries on there, including Venezuela, Mali, Egypt, Yemen, Somalia. Thank you.
Egypt is on the sanction.
Yep.
For EU.
Or EU, I don't know why. There is detail. So
Now I feel a little bit better about Brexit now.
let me just copy and paste
Wait
this.
until you get on the list.
So I just
But,
copied and pasted it in there.
Egypt, how dare they? What?
Yeah, like so I know I seconded it, but it's to get it into conversation. So my issue is that if somebody has, like, if a country has an issue with another country, are we always going to take that side and then tell people that they can't work in an open organization? And they're volunteering; they're not exactly working.
Yeah, I think we have to revisit this part. I think this is the way this one is phrased is essentially a little bit heavy-handed, but sort of protects from a fiduciary perspective. But equally, this can change all the time.
Yeah.
Yes,
Would
we
it
have
be
a
worth
situation elsewhere. Yeah, we have to be a bit careful as to how we do that.
Would it be worth instructing the foundation into identifying whether there are any alternatives to this? Seeing as there's a lot of like, so just for your information, it's misappropriation of state funds of Egypt, which is why they're on the sanctions list. So it's not so bad, but there are a number of different countries there that seem to have other more serious issues associated with them, so like terrorism and stuff like that. So so from that perspective, like we would really need to, instead of just distancing ourselves from everybody, anytime that a country comes out to say that that they don't want to work with them, or that there's just some sort of issue, maybe we need to come up with a better solution.
Also a question, what is about somebody from a fixed country who has a green card in the US?
Yeah, yeah, for those cases, I think we would have to take it as subsidiary motion. But for now, I think we should continue. I think we all agree we still need to continue with this. I'm also just conscious of time. Apologies, but if there are no further points, I will put this to a vote. Anything else, everyone?
So there's just last one. The phrasing this was forwarded by the lawyers, advised to accept to be complying with the law.
Yeah.
That's fact, right? Okay.
Thank you, Martin. All right. Again, we'll proceed with the vote. The order I can see. So Martin.
Yes.
Brent.
Yes.
Gary.
I'm going to vote no. I'd observe how absurd it is that we're being asked to vote on this. We have no choice.
Okay. Thanks, Gary. Owen.
I'm going to abstain.
We're not going to have a majority.
In which case, it's not a board vote, guys. You know, we can't vote against this here, so it doesn't make sense.
You still can have a majority based on Sharif's vote.
Mhm. And also, since Sharif is the chair of this session, he could also vote to break a tie, but there isn't going to be a tie, but depending on how Sharif votes.
If Sharif abstains, it's 2-1. If he votes yes, it's 3-1. If he votes no, it's a tie.
I don't know if you can have this discussion during the vote.
Sorry.
Yes.
Sharif, yes.
Yeah. So from that perspective, I am still going to vote yes on the precondition that, well, I won't say precondition, but on the intent that we're going to have to revisit this in the future to fix it. But this is specifically for the US sanctions list.
Since when do we have conditional voting?
It's not conditional. I'm saying yes, but the intent is to go and revisit this after. Sorry.
Does that need to be built into it?
No, there's no way to do that. There's no way to account for that. I think it's very telling that the 5 members of the board that are voting tonight, I think all of us would have chosen to abstain or vote no, but we have no option here, because if we don't comply legally, we have other ramifications. We will bring the foundation into serious legal trouble.
Yeah.
So I think, Sharif, you have voted
yes,
and I think your vote is the right vote. Martin and I were quite vocal about not liking this and still voted yes. We have to fix this. We have to find a way to fix this. So Andrew, I'd like to ask that you look into what options we do have available to us. Reach out to the attorneys and find out what we can do to allow the entire world to participate in the OWASP Foundation.
Yes.
Well said. Great.
Yeah, it was already on my list of things to do, but yes.
I realize that is an ever-growing list, Andrew, but unfortunately,
That's what I'm here for.
Yes.
At the end of the day, basically, we're crossing my fingers, going to get administration change, but unfortunately, the sanctions list, some of the countries on the sanctions list have been there for 50 plus years, so we can't rely upon a change of administration for a change in approach here. So I will look into alternatives for you. Maybe there's an alternative that we could use through the EU. I don't know.
and the concept of sanctions is well understood and well accepted. I'm okay with the United States saying we don't want to play with certain people. That's the prerogative of that administration.
Mhm.
We, as the
As a top-
Open Web Application Security Foundation, we definitely want to play with everyone. We want everyone to have the same access to the same tools, because it's the
As a-
people at the end of the day, not the regime.
Yeah. As I said in the past, I mentioned that a friend of mine, he's in the Amnesty International in Germany in a directorship. So I will ask him about how they solve it. Maybe they can give us advice.
Mhm.
Please do, Martin. But I suspect that Amnesty, like Red Cross, have they skirt the regulations, and because of their role, they're given a lot of leeway by most countries.
I will come back to you with details.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm just quite conscious that we have a few other motions to cover, so I just want to say one more point on that one, which is really important to me because coming from Egypt, I didn't really fit in many places, and it was actually like the DEF CON DC 442 meetups and OWASP that I felt at home and quite welcoming, and it's something that I want to make sure that that's afforded to anyone. So thank you.
The sheriff says sound is not really clear. Just want to make sure.
My what?
The sound is not really coming through clearly. So
Maybe it was that. I'm saying that when I came to London, the two places that I felt at home or welcome was DC 4420, so that's the local DEF CON chapter, and the OWASP chapter, and I want to make sure others are afforded this as well for anyone working in security. So thank you for everyone's sentiment on this. Now, moving right along, we have two motions. The first one is a motion to adopt 2/3 majority for bylaw and policy changes. It currently doesn't have a sponsor or a second. I'm happy to sponsor this, although
And I can second.
Thank you, Owen. With that, we can open that up for discussion and a vote. Essentially, Andrew, correct me if I'm wrong, but essentially this says that policies or change of bylaws will require a 2/3 majority rule, and that basically essentially means for 5 votes, 5 voters will need 5 votes. If folks have abstained and so on, it's for 6 votes, it'll be 4, and
Yes.
so on.
Well, seeing as we just applied that for the previous vote, I think we're all in agreement that this is the right way to do things.
Yeah.
Okay. Without further ado,
Need a sponsor and a second.
no, I sponsored and Owen has seconded.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Martin,
Yes.
Grant,
Yes.
Owen,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
and that's yes for myself. So the motion passed with 5 yes. The next motion, this is also I'm sponsoring, and I believe Owen, would you second?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me just check. Oh no, this. Okay, yeah. So this one is adopt 2/3 majority for director and officer removal. So this is if there's a vote of essentially no conduct or removal of a director and officer, this will require a 2/3 vote.
Sound, please.
Okay, I'll scream louder, but this is essentially for a 2/3 vote if there is a motion of no confidence for a board director or an officer of the OWASP Foundation.
Martin, I think it's your ears because I could hear him okay that time.
Okay.
So,
Maybe I have to change my headphones soon. Power. And it's only Sheriff comes to not muffled. Sorry. Okay.
I think we should actually just get Sharif a decent microphone, because I'm
do.
having the same trouble. It's an age thing.
So I have headphones. I just don't have them with me right now. I would like to apologize. Okay. So we'll go through for a vote if there's no further questions. So Martin,
Yes.
Grant,
Yes.
Owen,
yes.
Gary,
Yes.
and that's a yes for myself. Just one correction is the motion has Grant and Vandana on it. Okay, so the next two, so there's a subsidiary motion to change 5 years to lifetime for complementary members vote.
Sharif,
Right. Yeah.
you said one correction about the sponsor. That wasn't the sponsor for the director and officer, right? That's you and Owen, correct?
So
Yeah.
the motion was, I would say that the thing that threw me off is this section. This is actually not a separate motion. It is the entire motion. So,
Okay.
but the
So are
sponsor, the second is Vandana.
So the
Okay.
director and sponsor was myself and Vandana.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I will sponsor this subsidiary motion, Sharif.
I can second it.
The complementary membership change from 5 years to lifetime.
Okay. So Grant, can you walk me through the this motion?
So essentially, it's got to do with the change to the membership policy, and this is just a matter of bringing the sorry, this should be honorary membership, not complementary.
That's right.
So the complementary membership vote above is an e-vote, but it's actually about the honorary membership. So the honorary membership will become a lifetime membership.
Yes.
Not complimentary, no. If it says complimentary anywhere in the motion itself, that's wrong.
No, it doesn't. It's,
No,
it's just in the
title.
text around the motion.
The header above it.
Yeah.
So it's in order to bring this in line with the membership, the proposed honorary lifetime membership. So just drawing the clear distinction between complementary membership, which is given to leaders
1 year.
for their service, and a honorary membership, which is given to individuals who have, shown that they really are engaged with the foundation and are contributing to the foundation in a very large way. So
Okay.
honorary membership versus complementary.
Yeah,
makes sense.
I have a little bit of. I'm sorry that I opened it a separate tab, but I distinctly remember in the policy that we just voted on, I believe it has that, which says we have the board can choose every year bestow an honorary membership on one. Grant up to 3 lifetime memberships per year. So this was already in the policy that we voted on for membership.
Yeah, this is literally just so that Andrew is aligning all of the pieces that we voted on previously. So this is just to align all the things together.
Yeah, the motion
Okay.
just simply makes sure that everywhere where it's mentioned, it's consistent. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
It doesn't say the words. It just simply makes sure that it's not 5 years, it's consistently lifetime. And I'll make sure that everything agrees with each other.
This is just this is making sure that all honorary memberships become lifetime memberships.
Okay, thank you for.
But yeah, okay. All future. All
Yes,
memberships,
sorry. All future memberships that are considered honorary granted by the board. Yes.
Thank you. Good.
That's the old age kicking in.
Yeah.
No, it's a
Okay.
concern for OWASP.
Mm.
Okay.
Let's go with that. All right. So again, by the order of board members I can see, Martin,
Yes.
Brent,
Yes.
Owen,
Yep.
Gary,
Yep.
and myself probably say yes. Okay. So the last discussion item that has been sneakily added to the board agenda for today. We didn't see it. We didn't see it, Mike, from the preparation. So that wasn't there until recently. I'm happy to sponsor this, by the way. Mike, it would be an honor.
Seconded.
Thank you. So we can open this for discussion. And Mike, can you please go through the proposal?
Excuse me, who's second? Is that you, Martin?
Martin.
Martin.
Thank you.
Do you want to click on the PDF or you want me to?
If it works, the last time I got it was a 4 of, oh, good, well done. All right.
Okay, cool. All right, this isn't too long, but real quickly, so as most of you know, almost 2 years ago, well, not quite 2 years ago, year and a half ago, we started on this trademark journey. So let me just kind of go through the slides and let you know where we're at. So real quickly to recap, the goals of the trademark effort was really to protect the reputation and the work of the foundation. Obviously, if people are using our marks and they shouldn't, this is part of the thing that we want to protect. It's not about open source or not open source, it's about protecting the reputation. So we want to increase the consistent use of our marks. If marks are used consistently, that actually creates trust in the marketplace, which is something we want to do. Brands are shortcuts for these types of things. We want to provide value to our core and supporting members. And we do also want to monetize the value of the marks, which is what the majority of this conversation will be about here. So for those of you that are not familiar with trademarks, the timeline you normally go through is you create some unique mark or design for commerce, visual or a word, and you use that in an unprotected way, and you use it as a trademark. We've been doing this for quite some time. In fact, from almost the first week I was here, we started doing this, and it was being done before then too. But you use them as unprotected. And then what you do is you file for registration within a certain number of classes. And this is what patent and trademark law considers the scope of how you're going to use the mark. Our marks have been filed in classes 35 and 42, which are around events and training and publications, if you will. Those are kind of in those classes 35 and 42. Then what you do is we're at step 4, which is determine if we want to have any sort of licensing strategy. And then after you go through that process, you would go through litigation if that's necessary. So next slide. So real quickly, as you all know, this is the current status of our marks. There's 4 of them. Not all of them have been fully registered in all geographies, but they have been filed and are pending. And you can kind of see the status of each of those in terms of the current status. Pending EU is just they were filed after the US, and so we're expecting to hear from that at any point in time, but that's where we are. Next slide. Another thing goes, so those are the registered trademarks. Do remember that the foundation does have other trademarks. These are items that we've used in commerce, kind of in that first step before you were to register them. So what's great about this is because we've declared these items as trademarks, we are protecting prior use. So for instance, no one could stand up a conference called LastCon around AppSec because that's our trademark. Or they could, but it just couldn't call it LastCon or Snowfrock or some of these other events that we've done regionally in the past. Again, this was done to protect the OWASP Foundation. All right, next slide. So the proposed licensing strategy that we've been talking amongst staff about that I want the board to consider is that we would begin to start licensing the OWASP trade name. And I'm going to talk about that in the following slides. There is no, right now, I would not recommend that we try to license Open Web Application Security Project because I don't think there'd be any interest in that. So that's just, it was there to kind of like check a box was the reason why we registered it. I'd also discourage the foundation to consider licensing Global AppSec because I do think that you should use that exclusively for our biggest events of the year. And that how we use that is we always append location. So whenever we talk about the conference that's happening this month, it's always Global AppSec Virtual. It's never AppSec, it's always Global AppSec. It's never OWASP Global AppSec, it's only Global AppSec because that's our trademark. And it has to be used in that way for us to continue to protect it. And then the last one is to license AppSec days on a case-by-case basis, if needed, for regional events. And try to get our regional events to migrate to AppSec days and then append the location. And the idea here is that I know I've had this conversation with a variety of the regional events. There's varying levels of support and non-support of this idea, by the way, but this will be something for Andrew to manage. But the one comment I want to make a comment about in this last bullet is that some people will say, well, I don't want to have AppSec days because I only have a single day event. But what I've tried to explain to them is that when you look at it globally across OWASP, these are all of these AppSec days across our universe, if that makes any sense. And again, by having them all called AppSec days, this allows people to know, hey, there's this AppSec days that's in Austin this week. Oh, it's going to be like the one that was in Denver 2 months ago. And it helps us if we have the names consistent. All right, so let's talk about OWASP and licensing. So if you go and do an incognito search from my desk of OWASP top 10 in quotes, and then the word training following it, I get 151,000 results. And only 2 links from the first page of results are members, okay? And I want to point out that the uses that people are using OWASP top 10 training are not fair use instances, but like a press article. They are actually commercial use. They're using it to sell, most often, a training class on the OWASP top 10, all right? So again, on the next slide, you'll see that what I did is that this was a slide deck, you would have seen that I would have moved to this slide and you would have seen, okay, this is the first page of results. Only one of those companies are a member. If you scroll down to the next page, Sharif, you'll see that on the next, this completes the first page because it's kind of long. There's one other member and there's 2 instances of us, but all of the rest, and even the videos, 2 of the 3 videos, all of these are non-members that are using our marks to sell training classes. If the idea is that by calling it the OWASP top 10, they're more likely to sell their training class than calling it Bill and Ted's AppSec 10 top class or something like that is the logic. All right, so the next slide down, I kind of dove into a couple of these. So I clicked on this site called, which was in the first page, around InfoSec skills. I would say first off, and this is kind of a tip of the hat to Martin, there's nothing inherently wrong with people charging for training at all. And in fact, our content is open source. But when people are out there trying to solicit students using our trade name, it helps them improve the perceived value of their training. This was a class I clicked on for OWASP top 10. It was $1,700 per person to actually get the class done. So it's actually, people are obviously, as we all know, there's quite a bit of transactional benefit people are getting off of the OWASP name. So the next slide. This is example 2. This was a training class. It's just I clicked on one of the links and it shows you can actually go to these guys and get a full certification around the OWASP top 10 and AppSec. And of course, they're using our trade name, not in the title, but in the description, where they say that this class is around the OWASP top 10 risks. Okay, and again, this would be a commercial use of our trade. And then finally, example number 3, our platforms are also using the OWASP as part of their monetization strategy. If you're a LinkedIn premium users, they get in learning included as well. As I understand the way the business model works is instructors get a royalty when users take that class. This use case right now is currently out of scope of the current strategy, but I've talked to Andrew that at some point in the future, we'd want to approach platforms as well to kind of like get this under control. Because right now, obviously, there's other training platforms in addition to in-learning from LinkedIn that monetize classes using our trade name, in this case, OWASP. All right, so the next slide. So the idea that I have been working on and proposing to the foundation is that you go to the process of licensing the term OWASP for trainings and publications. And the model is very simple. If you're a corporate member, we waive the fee. If you're not a corporate member, you have to pay a flat annual fee to use that. And it is somewhat aligned with membership. It's basically 50% of the price of becoming a member. And that regardless if you're a member or non-member, you must sign a license agreement. And by the way, what's important here is that all this is a license to use the name. We're not endorsing the quality of it. We're not certifying it. We're not doing anything other than just saying you can use the stream OWASP in the name or description of their products. All right. Go ahead.
Sorry, I understand, and it's very clear that you say we don't endorse of quality, but would not people assume, not reading it, that actually this will happen?
Yes, well, that's already happening today.
Yeah.
So I think that there is some of that, but the one thing I want to point out, and this is true of everything, the OWASP Foundation is under no obligation to license their marks to anyone. So for instance, if there's a trading company that's doing a crappy job and we don't think that they're, on the up and up or whatever the case might be, we could choose to not license the marks to them. So even though they could pay for it, we could choose not to license it to them. So there is an out for us if we don't want to have someone using our mark. We're not obligated to. It's just an opportunity that if we want to license our marks to them. Does that make sense, Martin? It does imply that they have some relationship with us, but right now that's already the case.
I totally agree. Also, Grant helped me a lot last few times to understand this view. The other side is that it all means that we need the community to report to us abuse when it's a really bad training. And we also need the operational side. So, but I always think if you put it in the law, you also need somebody who has to be detectable and you have to act on it. So how much on the impact for that is for us? So we need also operational side then as well, right?
So Martin, this is separate from the discussions that you and I have had. But I think the intention is to police this type of case in the same way that most laws get policed. If the cops happen to see you doing something and it looks really bad, they'll slap the cuffs on you and fine you. And that's kind of how we're going to approach this, right? If we see large companies who should be corporate members using our marks without permission, we're going to go ask them to either please sponsor the foundation and you get access to the marks for free, or pay a reduced sponsorship to the foundation for the use of the marks, right?
Yeah, I understand it's different, but still you help me understand this, understand this side of view. But I said, when I don't believe to put in rules. So imagine we would put in a rule, a speed limit, which we have in all countries, except for certain countries, exception on the highway. Mm-hmm. But we have no way to measure speed. Then this rule makes no sense. So the question is, so you need three strengths. So you need the law, you need execution, and you need the following up.
So I see this as the same way that the Linux Foundation enforces its trademarks. It occasionally does it in, various means, but we are looking at this from the point of view of reaching out to folks in the first year, to those who are actually in the top 2 pages of Google's results, and approaching them. And sometimes we'll actually get some results and sometimes we won't. Now, at the end of the day,
that's what I want to hear.
Yeah, and the other thing is that we will work eventually on the other part of it, which is certifying trainers in OWASP materials, but that is not part of this. This is essentially about defending our marks.
Okay, yeah, let's just make sure that when we have that rule, what is the other side? Do we follow it up? It's very nice to have a document. It's like having a manifest. Everybody can write a manifest, but if there's nothing
so the
about
very
it.
First company we should be hitting is SANS.
Yeah.
Because they're making a fortune on the OWASP name.
They probably are. So let me keep going. I want to be cognizant of time because we only have 5
Okay,
minutes.
thanks. Sorry, but that's clarified, and I'm happy that that's following up for that. Okay, thanks.
All right. And when it comes to events, by the way, this is to include the word OWASP in an event name. This would not be a waiver for corporate members. But the idea is that if someone wants to have an event, and they want to call it the OWASP, conference or whatever, we would have a completely separate process for that. It has nothing to do with how we're doing this other side of it, which is the training and publication path. And there the fees would be much higher, and it would be a completely different business model. So just so you understand, that's kind of what I'm proposing here. And by the way, yeah, so the idea is to make it very cheap for small events and a little bit more rich for bigger events. All right, so next slide. So if the board were to go ahead and say, let's go ahead and start moving forward with this, the idea is some of the next steps we'd have to kind of get to would be develop some website content that explains how this is going to work, outlines what those marks are, provides a rationale. I think our community would like to know why we're doing this, but we'll have to do that. Then what we would do is we collect a list of license opportunities, which is like what Andrew had just mentioned. Approach some of these opportunities with a choice and ask them to kind of make a decision and then kind of go from there. And then the idea is that over the long term, we'd also approach the platforms for custom arrangements type at some point. The one thing I will say, and this is important because I'm kind of partying, but the on the third bullet there on that item. So we would basically, the idea would be is you would approach some to get them to sign up. You'd give them, you'd say, hey, look, you need to get, right with the law before January 1st. So you give them a grace period. You don't want to like turn them off that day. And then you'd wait a month, you'd wait a couple months, maybe a full quarter, and you find people that are violating, that are kind of pissing you off, and you want to definitely, do something about them. What most companies do is at that point, they take some sort of high profile action with a violator who is well known to the community to kind of scare everyone to realize that you're not messing around, that you are going to take this very seriously. So again, in Martin's analogy, this is the speed trap that the police set up to kind of let everyone know that, hey, we are taking this seriously and we are going to police it. And then the idea is that hopefully, if done well, that'll help get more organizations to voluntarily comply because they realize that if they don't, that there's potential risk for legal action later. And so that was kind of and I know we didn't have much time, but that's kind of the big picture. The idea is that people can use the word OWASP if they're a member, and if they're not, they should become a member or pay a fee is kind of the logic. And it's a corporate member, by the way, not an individual, it's a corporate member.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, sure.
So most of our the vendors that are doing this are also part of our community and members of OWASP. So I'm just wondering whether because this is technically a huge change and it's something that it could also cause us a lot of issues, should we be asking our community for feedback on it, whether we should be going down this route? Because like the approach that you mentioned, it could mean that we have to have lawyers on retainer, and we're wasting a significant amount of money following up with something that like I've been involved in these kind of things from an organization point of view, where so big companies just throw money at lawyers and bury the smaller. So yeah. I'm just want to make sure that we're not going down a rabbit hole and inadvertently impacting the foundation financially.
Yeah, I think that and what you're describing is a very important point. So the two things that I've done with the design of this, one, the board resolution that you can see on the final slide is just to get the board to designate the executive director to start working on this. Right now, it's outside the scope of the operating plan, and we just want to basically say that we're going to develop, implement, and start doing this. And then in my slide before, as I've mentioned, is my theory is that you will likely get dozens of companies to very quickly, become a corporate member or pay the fee, which would help you build up a little bit of a reserve that if you want to, again, take a high profile action with a smaller organization, that you'd have sufficient budget to engage the lawyers for that one case. But the rest of them would not be, again, the logic is, well, and I don't know this for a fact, but I will say that in other trade associations that I've been involved in the first 3 or 4 years of the organization, we only went after one company, and it was a very deliberately selected company. You know, it was not Microsoft. It was a smaller player in a country that we knew would not have the economic resources to fight back, but it was very visible to the community with the logic that the kind of, you find a high profile way to begin to enforce it, and then more people begin to comply because they can see that, you know, again, you mean business.
Yeah, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but Kelly, I'd be interested in your view based on your relationships with sponsors, because this is going to hit the vast majority of them as well.
No, Mike and I have talked about this at great lengths. Andrew earlier, actually, I think it was last week, we spoke and went through these slides. I think it's when you really look and see how many companies are using the OWASP brand, the OWASP name, our tools, our projects, documentation, and why do they, you know, sometimes you contact them and it's just like individual membership. Why would they pay when everything is free? So I think, go ahead, Martin, sorry.
No, it was just when you get done.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
it's a good, you know, I said this is a learning curve for me. I don't have a background in trademarks or licensing. I have been doing some research, so I am going to rely heavily on Mike while he's here to get as much information from him as I can and learn as much. And then Andrew once Mike's gone. But I do think it's definitely a good revenue potential for a lot of revenue for the foundation. You know, a lot of these corporate members, they'll say, oh yeah, you know, even like on, you know, I've searched Indeed or any of those companies or any of those sites, and you type in OWASP, they're using our name even in their required job descriptions, and they're not corporate members. So they're requiring their employees to know about us, which means that they're using us, you know, our projects, everything, but they're not giving back. We can't continue to survive and provide all these up-to-date, you know, resources for free if we don't look for other avenues of resource, I feel. So I like this idea. When it gets a little bit, I don't know, not technical, but more like legal, like if somebody doesn't comply, that's where it's probably going to be over my head, where we're going to have to bring lawyers into the situation. Hopefully it doesn't get to that and they'll just pay us and be done with it. But
yeah, I agree, Kelly. So
Martin was next. Sorry.
Yeah, I totally agree with Kelly. And one thing we had in the past years that people really abuse our name, saying there was an OWASP training, and we called them up and they were really like willing to change it. Maybe I never had a time that said, "Oh, I don't care," or they always approved it. I think that's a good way, and I really approve it. Two things I have hesitating, so I want to make sure that this vote will not approve this as such. It's one that says license for OWASP training and publications, because we still have people, researchers, students, the public material, you reference our material. And that would also be a license question. I think that should not be right. The second one is the license for OWASP in event name. This is one I really am afraid of selling out OWASP, the name brand of OWASP.
That was my concern when I spoke to Andrew and Mike about this, was the licensing for somebody else other than the foundation to use our name and put on an event, because we don't have any oversight, we don't see any of that, so we don't know.
Yeah,
that was my only concern. But you know, then it was pointed out to me that, well, if there's, you know, if it goes bad, then next year when they come back for, you know, if they want to relicense again to hold the event again, we say no. I don't know.
so
Mike,
just
gone through, I think he's experienced that before. That does, and I said that earlier last week, I said that does concern me a little bit.
Yeah. So Kelly and Martin, just as a point of information, the motion itself doesn't exactly specify what needs to be done. It just simply states that Andrew should go and explore it. I agree with that, which is not everything we should be licensed, or so licensing someone to write their own project that has nothing to do with OWASP, or licensing an event potentially. We can decide what that is at a later date, but that allows us to now take the necessary steps. And the other one is, having worked in tech companies which depend heavily on branding and so on. In many cases, you don't actually, you spray, basically you notify people who have been violating, and you basically collect. You don't necessarily have to follow up with every single one with legal action, but the majority will, and then you become selective as to which ones. The other thing is to, as advice, is for us to be very conscious of the court of public opinion. And so we have to, approach this as the good guys, that we are defending the community and defending also the brand and OS names, because they've been used quite a bit. And the ones that in Mike's defense, the ones he's been pointing at, were even the okay players. They're not talking about, they haven't mentioned, for example, the ones that are said certified OWASP training and things like that, that are basically almost as if you're getting it from OWASP, which is even worse. So there's that as well. There is also sort of egregious use of the license that we are not protecting ourselves from at all.
Do any of the board members have any like background? Have they, any background with licensing and trademarks, branding like this?
In the past, I had something for a method, but the licensing was not a good experience. But,
Yeah, and well, and I'm not a board member, but I've had a lot of experience with this at a couple of different trade groups. I mean, the one where I kind of cut my teeth on it was with Bluetooth, and making sure that that mark was protected across a variety of different kind of uses worldwide, by the way. And it was a way to kind of enforce some consistency, build familiarity and trust in our brand, and also we use it as a revenue opportunity. And I think the great thing for the OS Foundation would be that, we'll be able to monetize some of this, so that, perhaps the organization over the long run would have enough money to begin to able to hire even more resources to help make the top 10 better, or, all these resources that people are using. It would be great to be able to invest our own money in staffing to make them better. So it's not, my philosophy would be, you don't try to do this to just line the pockets of bonuses for people, but it's more about taking the money and reinvesting it back in that, in those assets to make them even more valuable.
Okay, so we are over time on there. Is there any additional discussions prior to the vote?
yeah, it's a naming because the motion is to resolve that, to develop, implement, and manage the trademark licensing effort. So I totally agree on the trademark effort. On the licensing, I have many questions. By voting this, it actually could be seen as approving it without further validation. And that's something in the naming or in the wording of the motion I don't like. So I'm in favor of the trademark, that we do something in licensing, but the wording is a bit like approving it. I think that's not correct.
It's trademark. It's not trademark and licensing. Sorry, go on, Grant.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Martin's point is well taken, but Martin, we can always, as a board, ask the executive director to stop doing whatever actions he may take in this process.
I'm really happy with it. I totally agree with that it's necessary, and I'm really happy about the effort that Mike put in it. That's clear. It's just in the motion says that,
they need to develop, implement, and manage the trademark licensing process. So this is about the licensing of the trademark.
Yeah, I would say that they come with a solution that we approve on not the final product. But apparently I'm the only one with this concern, so okay. Well, I totally agree that it's necessary. Just want to make sure the wording is correct.
Okay, so thank you, Martin. So we'll begin the vote from the order of seat. So first with Martin.
Yes.
Grant,
Yes.
Owen,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
and yes for myself. So the motion is passed with 5 votes in favor. And now we come to the end of the meeting. Thank you everyone for staying over time. So I motion to adjourn.
Can I just make one comment? Can I just ask the board members to promote the election? As of this morning, we have 10 days left and 9% of the members have voted. Which is,
No.
we never get more than
That's right.
30%, but we don't have a lot of people who voted so far. And I keep sending information out, but if you can promote it, I'd be grateful. Thank you.
Yeah,
Is that 9%?
Percent, not 9 people, 9%.
Well, so
I
9
don't-
people
I
would
don't
be
know.
worse, but 9% is terrible.
Yeah.
We never
we
get
simply-
above
There's a lot of people from the UK have voted, but they found them in a ditch out near Baltimore a while ago with all my name on it. So I think there's something going on here.
And they're burning ballots in mailboxes here in the US too. So we've got all kinds of bad voting.
I think we
fake
have
ballot
poorly
boxes
timed our
too.
elections.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no way I'm doing
Okay.
a peaceful transition. Not a chance.
And
So-
how is it compared to previous years?
We've never get past like 30% normally. And this year is lower than, because there's only 10 days left. So
And most people vote in the last minute, isn't it?
a lot, yes, but I still think it's low, you know.
Okay.
It's
Oh,
Yeah,
always low, but this, and I don't really know why, because we have a lot of people at obviously more than 250 people active. But I'm gonna post it to Meetup today, send it that way. I do Twitter, I do Facebook, I do Slack. I have reminders.
Don, make sure that they know what the email subject says, because sometimes that goes into separate
spam.
tabs.
Okay.
So, yeah, I had to drag my own ballot out of my spam filter.
Yeah, so please make sure that they know what the subject is so they can search
Yeah.
for it, find it, and add it to Slack, reach out to Sam and the team in the chapters committee, because each chapter can ping their community so
Yeah.
that they can go and vote as well. So that would be
Okay.
helpful for each.
Thank you for your
chapter
help.
to do
Yeah.
that.
One last one is the leaders meeting is at 12:30, so 45 minutes time. I'd really love to have the board come to that. It's in the Bizbo schedule. If you haven't got it, I can share it with you.
Yeah, please share it.
Yeah.
Please share it. Okay, I've got to go have dinner, folks. Thank you.
So motion to adjourn. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second.
Everybody wants to second that one.
Thank you.
Second, third, fourth, fifth. Have a good one.
Thanks,
everybody.
y'all.
Hi, guys.